we actually didn't go live in the middle of a sentence this time. It's a first in, I think, 6 podcasts.
Boom, killing it.
You know, like those signs that are in like warehouses, it's been X amount of days without an incident. We need one that says it's been X amount of podcasts without a atypical intro.
I mean, I could write something up on the board behind me if I didn't have it.
Oh, do you have a board? I didn't know you had a board.
That's what
You
this
got it
is.
on
This is a
blurry.
whiteboard.
See,
I
I'm
know.
vulnerable. I'm like, look at the man cave. You got the
Nah.
whiskey barrel in the background, which opens up. It's a pretty sweet cabinet, by the way. NBA Jam sitting back there.
Pretty cool.
Shuffleboard.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of junk on either side of me. So,
There you go.
And a whiteboard behind me.
There you go. If Mike McDaniel is watching this, you, sir, are dead to me. I think he knows it. He and I, yeah, I don't. Have you talked to Mike before? I feel like he's been on. Okay, I know I've brought him on a couple of times. I didn't know if I ever did it with you. Mike's actually a good guy, but he created this like CFB highlights X account. I guess it's X now. Can we say Twitter anymore? Do people know what X is?
Nope, no one knows what that is.
So he created the CFB highlights account. I told him, look, I'll like this account. He just posted videos of like previous plays or whatever. Said, I'll like this account as long as you promise to never show the Duke Miami kick return from years ago that should have been called back. And I swear to God, within 5 minutes, it's on that stupid account. But I'm in the airport in Texas and sitting there scrolling on X, and I see that. He might as well have tagged me in it because I know that's what it was meant for. Anywho, so Jim Harbaugh will be coaching all of the games this year.
Yeah, he will.
He was supposed to be suspended for 4. Now he's coaching all 12. And the reason is because the NCAA didn't agree with the 4-game suspension.
Just rejected it.
I don't understand that. Was it not agreed upon? Like I sitting here scratching my head. It's like, no, I feel like it was.
Well, I know that on the basketball side of things from Auburn, we had a thing with an assistant coach who paid some players, and Bruce Pearl did like we can't go to the postseason and all this stuff on our team without the NCAA coming down on us. And then the NCAA was like, okay, you're good after the fact. So maybe that's what they were trying to do here, but then the NCAA was like, nah, you're good. And they were like, cool. Well, Harbaugh's here all the time.
Well, no, I mean, the reality is the only reason the NCAA is disagreeing with this is because they're going to fight this in whatever court or whatever.
But for what reason? They have no power anymore.
Well, that's the thing. So, but if they didn't, though, Ben, why would any program self-impose any penalties or fees or fines or whatever?
Exactly, they shouldn't.
I mean, that's correct. But I don't know. So I'm kind of looking at this and lining up the pieces. Harbaugh got in a fight with his athletic director last year. This year, he agreed to a 4-game suspension. The NCAA says no. Every single year, his name is in NFL circles. This year, I think, is his best year to win a championship. If Michigan wins, I think it's 75% likely he jumps to the NFL.
What else does he have to prove?
Well, I just think it's kind of like, I think it's kind of like when Pete Carroll was at USC. Like, part of the reason he left USC was because I think he was looking at, okay, the chips are stacked against me. The NCAA is coming after me. Regardless of whether or not they're justified in doing so, they're going to come after me. They're going to come after SC. I got to go. And, the NCAA can't prevent him from coaching at the NFL level. So why not go up there? And I think this is starting to kind of come to fruition now with Jim Harbaugh, is it's like, the NCAA feels like the pieces are stacked against you. Your athletic director, you're getting into spats with him. It's starting to feel like more and more he's maybe not a great fit for college. Like, he can run a great team. He's an amazing coach, but part of the college political game, right? He doesn't fit in with that. And I think he's starting to see the writing on the wall and is going to head back to the NFL soon.
I mean, it makes sense. We thought he was going to go back to the NFL a few seasons ago before Michigan actually got it right.
Right. Yeah.
Which, honestly, even if he had left then, I would not have said he was a failure in college. He's just a better pro coach.
Right.
But now he's clearly a college success. Like,
right.
We all know that Harbaugh can coach college.
So
he can also coach the pros. He took the Ravens to the Super Bowl against the 49ers. Wait, he took the Niners?
Yeah, his brother coaches the Ravens.
Okay, well, whichever. They look so similar.
They do.
He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl against the Ravens. Almost won it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback, and I don't know if anybody watched Kaepernick after he left, but he wasn't exactly good. So I mean, I think Harbaugh is going to succeed wherever he goes, which is another reason why I think he's just going to bolt. Why wouldn't he? All right, we are doing Pac-12 preview today, which I am stoked about. I think the Pac-12 quarterback wise, it's the deepest conference in the country. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because I've got a very interesting question to throw at you, the audience, and to throw back at Ben. We were talking about this on really yesterday. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit of realignment. I feel like every podcast at this point, we have to talk realignment. It's just constantly moving. Plus, I feel like every time we do, Ben, more pieces move. So there is something about our podcast. We have impact on realignment across the country. At this point, there is no denying it because every time we do a podcast, within 48 hours, there's more news. So this past week, there was news that Cal and Stanford were exploring options and that the ACC potentially would want both of them. And the interesting thing is, leading the ACC's charge is Notre Dame. Now, don't forget, Notre Dame is a full-time member of the ACC. They just don't play football. So they get a vote. It is amazing the ACC even put them into that position. But the Notre Dame athletic director came out and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically came out and said that because of how academic Stanford and Cal are, both programs shouldn't be left behind. And I do feel bad for the student athletes and all of this. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But I don't feel bad for Cal and Stanford. And if those schools are so freaking smart, how come they lose so freaking often? And how come they're getting outmaneuvered by Arizona State and Utah? If Cal and Stanford are so smart, wouldn't they have a conference home? Like, it amazes me. Stanford is supposed to have this amazing school of business. College athletics is it's 100% business. That's all it is. And there is not an athletic program at the Power 5 level, including Vanderbilt, that is set off worse if you project over the next decade than Stanford athletics. There is literally not one Stanford athletic program that will get watched on TV that has remotely any excitement over the next 5 to 10 years. None. Vandy at least has an amazing baseball program, and they're pretty good at basketball. They're just not great at football. They at least have that. Stanford's got nothing. So I don't want to hear how smart these schools are when constantly these other schools are outmaneuvering them, and these aren't the schools that we associate with high academia. Maybe the whole college education is a little bit overrated. That's a story for another day. But if Notre Dame is going to lead this charge, Ben, here's what I think the ACC needs to do. They need to rope in Notre Dame into the conference. What's the only reason, and we've talked about it before, but what's the only reason Notre Dame is not in the Big Ten today? There's one big reason, Why are they
money,
not
baby? NBC.
Money, right? But money specifically from who?
NBC.
What deal does Notre Dame have that nobody else has? It's NBC, right?
Yep.
Cool. What does the SEC have and the Big Ten have that the ACC does not have?
SEC and Fox.
Right. So
or the ESPN and Fox, I guess.
Right. So SEC has a major network essentially backing them 100%. Right?
Disney, baby.
The Big Ten has a major network backing them 100%. Now, ACC and ESPN, they have a contract deal. But here's why it doesn't mean anything. Because if you think simple supply and demand, what is ESPN's goal with any contract deal? It's we want to try and reduce what we're spending our money on, right? So why would we spread out money over essentially right now it's 30 teams when we could push 4 into the SEC, potentially get rid of the ACC, then we don't have to pay them anything as the ACC doesn't exist anymore, right? And now we're spreading the wealth over 20 teams instead of 30. We just reduced our expenses by 10 programs. That's why we're seeing all of this consolidation right now in college athletics. Is it's really ESPN trying to cut their bottom line and do it, under backhandedly and in closed rooms.
I mean, get the premier programs together and you have better ratings.
Well, exactly. But here's the thing. If the ACC could cut a deal with NBC, cut a deal with Notre Dame, where they said, Notre Dame, you keep your revenue. Okay. You keep your revenue split for as long as you're tied into this ACC contract. You're going to keep your NBC revenue split, but you're going to come join ACC as a full-time football member. And NBC, get them to buy out your ESPN contract. So then NBC gets exclusive broadcasting rights to the ACC. They would get exclusive broadcasting rights to not only Notre Dame, but Florida State, Clemson, Duke basketball, North Carolina basketball. That would be enough to give the ACC maybe not exactly Big Ten or SEC money, but it's going to be up there, right? It's going to be way more than what they're getting now. I think enough to satisfy the FSU contingency and the Clemson contingency. And then over the next 5 to 6 years, can you look at adding a couple of other premier programs into this conference and really set yourself up for success? That to me is the only way you save the ACC. But if the ACC is going to continue to dilly-dally with Cal and Stanford, I mean, they bring nothing. Like if you're Ben, if you're an FSU fan and you hear Cal and Stanford are coming to the conference, are you stoked for that?
Nope. 2 more cream puffs to beat every
year.
They
bring nothing market wise. They're not even in an attractive part of California. Nobody goes to their games. I mean, have you ever pulled up go to Stanford, find fourth week of the year, whoever Stanford plays at home, show me a picture of the stadium. If that thing is over 25% full, I'll pay you $100. It won't be. It will be completely empty. And Stanford could go into that game 3-0 and nobody will go. Like it's just nobody watches Stanford or Cal football. So
and where is Berkeley?
Berkeley, I think I don't know. I don't know enough about California.
I don't even know where Cal is.
San Francisco. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't know where Stanford is. I don't know where
Stanford's in Palo Alto. I know that is close to San Francisco. Okay. Yeah, I mean Stanford's going to be like all the tech stuff. Are you Googling this? Are you finding us where Cal Berkeley is? What a great way to start off the Pac-12 podcast. Oh, neither of us know where Cal Berkeley
Looking at where this stuff is. So Stanford I've driven by Stanford because I flew into San Jose. Who knew? I've driven right by there and didn't even know.
Wow. So there's my proposal to save the ACC, Ben. I don't think they're going to do it, But I mean, everybody keeps tweeting at me, "Oh, ESPN and the ACC have an agreement." I don't care about an agreement. NBC can pay for it if they want it.
University of Cal at Berkeley is just north of Oakland, so it's across the bay from Stanford.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So they're like across a body of water from each other.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they're all smart.
I don't know that they are. I think they pretend to be.
They have good students.
I don't know why Stanford just doesn't like disband the whole FBS thing altogether and just go straight into the Ivy League.
That would make sense, honestly. Why wouldn't they be like the West Coast Ivy League? In fact,
I don't know.
Both of them.
Yeah,
both of them are.
You could do Stanford. I think you could do Cal. I think you could get Pepperdine in there. I mean, there was a whole bunch of other.
Why doesn't the Ivy League just expand? Why isn't the Ivy League expanding? Where's
our
this
podcast
Ivy League
is the only podcast capable of reaching the point of why doesn't the Ivy League expand? No, see, this is the content you do not get from any other podcast. Coward ain't talking about this tomorrow. I'll tell you that much.
It makes sense. Come on,
Herbstreit ain't going to talk about this.
Come on, Harvard, go get Stanford.
There you go. All right. So can we talk about the Pac-12 now and some actual football?
I mean, the Pac-4?
Well, I guess, yeah.
Pac-2 soon? Yeah, let's do it.
So. All right. So first off, I have to ask, because 2 episodes ago, Ben got into some trouble. Do you have your rankings pulled up, or do I need to go first? Do you have rankings to begin with, or are we not there yet?
I have
20 minutes into the show is typically where Ben starts his prep.
I have rankings.
He has rankings. Okay. Benjamin, hit me with them. I'll tell you what. Let's go old school like we used to. Let's start at 12 and work our way up. And you give me your 12 and I'll give you my 12.
Okay.
I like this suspense.
Coming in at number 12. We just talked about him a lot. Stanford.
Yep. I also have Stanford. You know, it's possible. And we'll see how the next 40 minutes plays out here, Ben. It is possible Stanford, in the little bit we've just done, will get more coverage today than USC will. Now, I hope not, but that would also be something our podcast is capable of. Stanford's also my number 12. So who's your number 11?
Number 11, Arizona State.
Ooh, I'm right there with you. I've got Arizona State there too. I think they're losing a lot of players. I think
they don't have a coach and everything else. So,
yeah, I mean, so Kenny Dillingham's coming in. This was a school that the NCAA was investigating last year. Drew Pine comes in over from Notre Dame. Good arm, not a great arm, no real athleticism. The running back group is not great, and this is a conference that has good running backs. And the coaches, I mean, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new head coach. And then you look at the schedule, Ben. Oklahoma State in week 2, Fresno State in week 3. Fresno State's a good mid-major team. USC at home, and USC's coming off of a bye. At Cal, at Washington, at Utah, at UCLA, home against Oregon. They're going to end with Arizona. I marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games that I feel confident they will lose.
Yep. Guaranteed losses.
Number 10.
Hey, Arizona State's head coach is Kenny Dillingham.
Yep.
Hey, Dilly. Auburn's offensive coordinator from like 4 years ago. Now head coach at Arizona State.
Yeah.
Well, he was offensive coordinator last year at Oregon but Bo Nix went to Oregon because of Kenny Dillingham being there.
So, there is another Oregon connection that's an offensive coordinator in the Pac-12 that we're going to talk about today. Keep going. All right, number 10, Ben.
Number 10, we talked about them a lot. They are across the bay from Stanford. University of Cal at Berkeley.
You're going to like where I have Cal. Number 10, I have Washington State. Washington State just loses a lot of players. They are they're good at running back. In fact, they're bringing in a lot of transfers at running back. Leading that off is Nakia Watson. He's back, I think, his second year since transferring from Wisconsin. That's going to be their strong suit. They lose their top 4 receivers from last year. Big concerns on linebackers. Secondary is going to be okay, but there's nothing on this team that's great. Their defensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, is Jeff Schmedding, who was Auburn's defensive coordinator last year. In them, that was another Auburn connection, by the way. Yeah, not great. Their defense was trash last year. So Washington State's going to play Wisconsin second week of the year, Oregon State week 4, at UCLA, at Oregon, at Washington. They also have to go at Cal. It's a lot of tough games, Ben. I think this team's probably somewhere around 4 to 5 wins. I'll put them at 10.
Nice. At number 9 for me, I have Washington State. So right there with you. Low on the rankings in the Pac-12.
Yeah. My number 9 is Colorado. We're going to talk about Colorado later on. I am so excited to watch them. I do think Ben's pretty surprised by this.
You know, they're a completely different team than they were last year, right? Like all of the players are different. I
do. But I think it takes time to build chemistry.
No, do you remember what happened to USC last year?
But Ben, here's the issue. Colorado's schedule early is brutal. They don't get a gimme to start off the year and figure it out. They're going to play their first game at last year. USC started off with Rice, Stanford, Fresno State. They got 3 games to figure themselves out. Colorado doesn't get it. They're going to play at TCU. Then they're going to play a hungry, and I mean hungry, Nebraska team week 2. It doesn't get easy. Now, week 3, they're going to get Colorado State, which you could say, okay, that's your gimme. That's your time to learn your offense. But it's an in-state rivalry. So not really. And then they go at Oregon week 4. So even if this team gets to 6 to 7 wins, I think they're starting off 1-4, Ben. So the schedule is not forgiving early.
Get ready for the prime effect.
What's that?
Get ready for the prime effect. 3-0, Colorado.
Now, what I do think, though, I think the team is going to be really, really fun. Shadir Sanders at quarterback, he's amazing. But, Ben, he might be, and I want to talk about quarterbacks after we get through the rankings, he might be the 6th best quarterback in the conference. The conference is that loaded at quarterback.
No, I know that.
You got Travis Hunter, who's an amazing wide receiver. He's also going to start at cornerback. I just don't like at Jackson State. You can do that. Can you do that in a Power 5 team?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's anybody who would know about doing that, it would be Deion Sanders, since he did some of that. But I just find that absolutely amazing. I think their schedule's brutal. I will say this: I have them at 9. If they ended up like 6th, I wouldn't be shocked. So I think they've got a lot of room to grow. I think they could be a bowl team, but I just think the schedule is going to be so tough. Bringing in 2 new coordinators, new head coach, new everything, and they didn't have anything last year. So there's no basis. This team's going to have to find their way early, and they don't get a cream puff to do it.
They don't get a cream puff, but they won't need one because they're going to knock off the runner-up for the national championship week 1 in Fort Worth, Texas.
Ooh.
Get ready.
Ooh. All right. Number 8, Ben.
Number 8, University of Arizona.
I'm right there with you.
Boom.
Yeah, we both have them at number 8. What do you think? What do you think of the schedule? Because I think Arizona, talent-wise, I think this team could be like an 8-4 team. I think with the schedule this year, they're going to be borderline bowl team.
Yeah. I mean, look, of your first 4 games, 3 of them are wins, which is good. Mississippi State is probably a loss for them. They're playing at Mississippi State as well. So that's a tough road challenge there. They're going to lose to Washington, University of Southern Cal. They could beat Washington State. Oregon State's going to be tough. lose to UCLA, lose to Colorado, lose to Utah, beat Arizona State. So, like, borderline bowl game.
Yeah, I mean that's where I think they are. But the thing I think about this team, Ben, they've got a great quarterback, Jaden Deloria. Jacob Cowing is an amazing receiver, had almost 1,000 yards last year. They have enough between those two, the quarterback and their receiving core. They're going to score points. I think they're around 6-6, maybe 7-5, but they're going to have a massive upset against somebody. I circled Washington at home. I think there's a big possibility they knock off Washington. If USC is sleeping, that game's October 7th. It's at USC. So if you pull up USC's schedule, USC is going to play before that game. They're going to play at Colorado, it'll be an interesting game. And then the week after, they're going to play at Notre Dame. So that Arizona game is the lone home game sandwiched between 3 road games. I think that makes it a really, really interesting battle. Like, I could see Arizona, and I don't know who it'll be, but I could see them knocking off somebody and just barely getting into a ball. The hard part with Arizona is going to be only 3 returning starters on defense, and I don't think that coaching staff is good enough to overcome that, though I do really like Jedd Fisch.
All right, so at number 7, I have Colorado in the prime effect.
Okay.
Coming into play. They are on the outside looking in from the top half of the conference, but just barely. And I think they go 3-0. They have some trouble with the rest of the conference schedule, but look out. Colorado is a completely different team from the one that won a single game last year.
So my number 7, Ben, you're probably going to, your jaw's probably going to drop on this one, but I have Cal at number 7. Cal receivers, offensive line, and running backs are going to be really, really, really good. They bring in at running back Byron Cardwell, transfer from Oregon, Justin Williams-Thomas, transfer from Tennessee, King Daru, transfer from Purdue, Isaiah Ifanse, transfer from Montana State, and a really talented true freshman, Javian Thomas. So their running back situation, not to mention they have Jaden Ott coming in as well. He returns from last year, had about 900 yards. They have got some amazing players lined up at running back. The fact they have King Daru in this lineup, and he's going to be like the 3rd or 4th string running back, they are super, super deep there, so they can rotate there. Cal's biggest issue is going to be replacing Jack Plummer, and can they do that? Because he's gone. But the linebacking core, you could argue, is the best linebacking core in the conference. It's amazing. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator, Jake Spavital. I think he's interesting. He comes over from Texas State where he was the head coach. If Sam Jackson or whoever ends up being the quarterback at Cal, if he can figure that out, and I do think Justin Wilcox is a good coach. Remember, this team won 8 games just a few years ago. I think Cal's going to be really, really good, kind of in that Arizona territory, and they're going to knock somebody off. I've got circled after their bye week, they host USC on October 28th. Now, I think USC wins it, but that is a game that I think keep an eye on because I could see Cal giving them a tough time. It's a good team, 17 returning starters.
You've pumped a ton of rainbows into Cal.
I have.
So, there you go.
Number 6.
Number 6, I've got Oregon State. Only because there are 5 teams that are better than them, which is why I put them there.
Fantastic.
Incredible analysis.
I mean,
didn't buy the book this year.
What was it we had last week? Was it so there? Was that your analysis on the team?
And that's why.
No, it was there you go. Yeah, that was your analysis.
All right, well, this is my end. There you go, team. Yeah. Oregon State, and there you go.
So my number 6 is UCLA. Here's going to be the tough thing with UCLA. Dorian Thompson Robinson is gone. How do you replace a guy like that? I think was an incredible quarterback. Now he goes off to the NFL.
Dante Moore, baby. That's how you replace him.
But they also lose Jake Bobo, who was their leading receiver. transfer from Duke, by the way, and he lit up preseason Thursday night. So those are two massive replacement pieces that you've got to figure out. But the one thing I will say about UCLA that I think is really interesting, Chip Kelly is touting this as the best defense he's ever had at UCLA. And the reason why that is so important is because Chip Kelly, when he went into the NFL, he mentioned what he wanted to do was put all of his salary cap money into the defense because he was smart enough to figure out the offense. Now, as smart as he was not smart enough to do that at the NFL level. You have to spend money at the NFL if you want to be good on offense. But at the college level, if he has a great defense, can he make up the deficiencies on offense, especially at quarterback? Absolutely, he can figure that out. So I think this is a really pesky UCLA team. I don't think they're going to be, they might be a dark horse to win the conference just because of that. But I wouldn't put them in my top three. And then you have to look at the schedule too. The schedule's brutal. At Utah, at Oregon State, at USC. So for this team to sneak into the Pac-12 title, they're going to have to upset two of those teams. That's going to be tough. And then week 1, Ben, they host Coastal Carolina. And Coastal, I'll tell you, they're coming in with Grayson McCall. I think that's a really interesting week 1 opener. UCLA last year struggled first half against Bowling Green. Week 3, they almost lost to South Alabama. They've not been great first 3 weeks of the year under Chip Kelly. And that's a tough way to start off with Coastal Carolina at home. But I think it's a really good team, so I've got them at 6.
All right. So and there it is for Oregon State was DJ Uiagalelei.
There you go.
So he is the quarterback at Oregon State. So good luck to the Beavers in being better than 6.
Who's your number 5?
UCLA is my number 5.
Okay.
How do you replace Dorian Thomas something, whatever his name was? Thompson Robinson. It's by bringing in 5-star freshman Dante Moore. Look out for him to be an incredible quarterback starting off as a true freshman for the Bruins. I think Chip Kelly is an incredible head coach. He's going to get these guys ready to go. He has a lot of firepower all around them. And if you look at their schedule, you think Coastal Carolina is going to be a challenge there? They lost their head coach. He went to Liberty.
I don't think Coastal Carolina beats them, but I think it's going to be like a sweating it out till the end type game because you're bringing back essentially a 6th-year senior quarterback, 5th-year senior, whatever he is. You're bringing him back.
The mullet's still on the team.
Grayson McCall, he's back. I think Coastal Carolina, they're traveling out west. Nobody's really giving them a shot. It's week 1 of the year. Yeah, I think it could be like a 35-20 game.
Okay. Well, I think UCLA goes 3-0 until they play Utah on September 23rd.
So, be a tough game.
I feel good for UCLA. Got them in at my number 5.
They also have San Diego State, and it's at San Diego State, who's not a bad team. Now, they are coached by Brady Hoke. So if Chip Kelly loses to Brady Hoke, maybe we need to rethink the whole Chip Kelly is a genius thing a little bit. But on that note, my number 5 is my surprise contender, Ben. Oregon State. Now, if you line up UCLA and Oregon State on a neutral field, I would probably like UCLA better.
But why would you put? Okay, go on.
The schedule. Schedule. Oregon State's avoiding USC altogether. They don't have to play USC, and they're getting Utah, UCLA, and Washington all at home. I think it's possible. I wouldn't say probable, but I think it's possible they could win 2 of those games. And then the Oregon game, I mean, that's their tough road conference game. That's an in-state rivalry. Those types of games we've seen it been, you really don't know which way that could go. So I could see Oregon State, we get to the end of the year, they've only got one conference loss, maybe, and they're not playing USC, so they don't have to worry about losing a tiebreaker to them. I could see them sneaking into the conference championship. And then if you look at this team, Damian Martinez is an amazing running back. I'd say probably best running back in the conference. He was last year's freshman offensive player of the year. So he's back. You are bringing in DJ Uiagalelei. Now, even if he doesn't work, Ben Goldbrinson was the starter last year for this team for 8 of their games. So he comes back. The receiving core is solid. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's definitely solid. And then the defense has some really nice players too, particularly in the secondary. It's a good defense. And the coaching group, it's all back to you're not replacing coordinators. So when you start adding those things up, plus an easy schedule, which starts off really easy at San Jose State, UC Davis, San Diego State at home, and then they're going to head to Washington State. They're starting off the year 4-0 before getting Utah at home, which if they're 4-0 with that game, that's 2 top 25 teams battling it out at Oregon State. The stadium is going to be packed. I could see them pulling off a big upset there against Utah. We've seen crazier things. So I'm putting Oregon State at 5th, dark horse contender to get into the Pac-12 title.
Very nice. All right, so my number 4 team in the Pac-12. This is a question that you asked me earlier in the week, and it leads into my answer here. Washington, number 4. Reason for that, if you look at the overall team, the one who will be leading it is a transfer from Indiana, Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
He is going to be the quarterback for the Washington Huskies. Look, decent quarterback, did some great things at Indiana. If you look at their schedule, they have a pretty easy first 4 games, maybe in 5 games, until they play Oregon. I think the difference between the team at number 4 and the team at number 3 is going to be settled on October 14th.
So I also have a Washington at number 4. Here's what I'll say about Michael Penix. And I think, by the way, I think the top 4 in the Pac-12 bin, I think we're splitting hairs on just about all 4 of these teams. Maybe USC's got a little bit of an edge, but these top 4 teams, especially when you factor in the schedules, I think we're going to see a lot of movement throughout the season. So Michael Penix, if you go look at Indiana, the year before he took over, Indiana was 5-7. And then they had gotten off to a 2-3 start before he took over at Indiana as the starter. 2-3 start in 2019. 3-2 start. And then he comes in as the quarterback. In between 19 and 20, he went 10-2 as the starter. Then he goes into Washington. The year before he starts, Washington was 4-8. They were absolutely awful. By the way, their 3 conference wins: California, Arizona, Stanford. Their other win was against Arkansas State. This was a bad team. Michael Penix takes over. Last year, they went 11-2. Their losses at UCLA by 8 and at Arizona State by 7. That's it. And Ben, here's what they were doing on offense: 45 points, 52 points, 39 points, 40 points, 32, 38, 49 points, 28, 24, 37, 54, 51. There is something about Michael Penix. And by the way, the year before that, they only scored more than 30 points 3 times. That was it. There is something about Michael Penix that just electrifies on offense. It may not be the sexiest thing to watch, but that team scores points with him at quarterback, and they have 15 total starters coming back on this team. It's a really talented team. The receiving core is really, really good. And this is the coaching staff's 2nd year here. If they were able to go 11-2 in year 1, what can they do in year 2? And it's the whole staff returning. I am really, really excited to watch this team. The schedule is where it gets a little bit tough, because it is easy early, it gets brutal late. So they're going to come off of their bye week and they're going to play Oregon, who's also coming off of their bye. Then their last 4 games looks like this: at USC, Utah at home, at Oregon State, Washington State at home. Between Oregon and those last 4, so if you were to take, Ben, their last 7 games of the year coming off of that bye week, I think there's at least 2, possibly even 3 losses put in there just because of how tough that is. It's going to be week in and week out. So I couldn't put Washington any higher than number 4, but I think it's a really nice team.
Love it. I think we are going to be the same from here on out, so we'll have to see.
All right.
Who's your number 3? I have University of Oregon. Go Ducks. Quack, quack. Look, Bo Nix is a super senior there. He has a new offensive coordinator, which we'll have to see kind of how he works with. The consistency for him with a coaching staff has been non-existent throughout his career. However, he has talent out the wazoo. And when you compare the two between Bo Nix and Michael Penix, both of them score points. I would say Bo Nix does it in a sexier way. The guy's crazy. He'll run all over the field, toss a 50-yard bomb, and score a touchdown. He electrifies the team, and Oregon is already a very good team to begin with. So look for Oregon. Hold on, let me jump into their schedule. First 3 games, wins across the board. They have maybe a challenge with Colorado coming to town on September 3rd.
Yeah.
Probably an easy win. Destroy Stanford. Then they play Washington. Washington's actually been kind of a thorn in Oregon's side for a while. So we'll see between the two that we just talked about exactly who is the better there. But I think Oregon comes out on top, which is why they're ranked above. Easily beats Washington State. Utah will be an interesting game. It's at Utah. If it's late again, look, that was the downfall of Southern Cal last year, was that Achilles heel of Utah. So that could be a very tough game for Oregon, which I don't see them winning. However, you go on to the next game at Cal, easy win. I think USC fortunately beats them as well. And then they win now the last 2 games, including beating Oregon State for the umpteenth thousandth time. So that has 10-2 season written all over it. Pretty good team here.
I think you're right. My number 3 is Utah, though. And again, I think we're splitting hairs.
Really,
man.
Cam Rising?
Really
what?
Cam Rising could legitimately win the Heisman. And I actually think, here's another thing, Ben. Let's talk about Cam Rising. October 21st, they're going to go at USC. If Utah goes at USC and they win, and Cam Rising is now 3-0 against Caleb Williams. And I don't care about the ACL stuff with or about the injury with Caleb Williams last year, because Cam Rising tore his ACL in the bowl game. So if he comes off of that and beats Caleb Williams a 3rd time and is 3-0 against him, does that not push Cam Rising into 1st round draft status? Because I feel like there'll be an NFL GM that'll be like, guys, this player Caleb Williams that everybody's clamoring over, there's another quarterback that's 3-0 against him, and he played at Utah, not USC. I think if that happens, the draft is going to be absolutely insane, because I think it's just going to be hanging over Caleb Williams' head. So that I'm fascinated to watch, Ben. Here is the thing about Utah. Every year they have a game, and I'm like, how in the crap did you lose that? Last year it was at Florida to start the year. The year before that, they lost to San Diego State in 3 overtimes in an absolutely ridiculous game. It's just constant. Every time you think Utah is going to be great, they're really good, and then they drop a game they're not supposed to drop. I don't know who it's going to be. They're going to play at Baylor week 2. I guess circle that one because it's away from home. What I will say about Utah is they are 19-0 at home when playing in front of a crowd. 19-0 their last 19 games.
Wow.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible that they've done that over their last 19 games. So their home games, they should probably win, but they're going to play at Oregon State. They're going to play at USC. They're going to play at Washington. Ben, I'm counting at least 2 losses there. And then I'm going to bank on them beating Oregon for them to have a chance to get in. I don't know that they will, Ben, and I'm going to talk about Oregon here in just a minute. But, Ben, I think it's an amazing Utah team. If they wound up winning the Pac-12, I would not be shocked whatsoever. So this is not a slight on Utah. I think offensive line, defensive line, this is the best trenches team in the conference by far. And I think Cam Rising is an amazing quarterback. But they constantly drop a game you don't expect them to drop, and I just don't want to bet on them to win the conference when I know that that's possibly going to be the case. I think they are 10-2, maybe 11-1, maybe, but I think they're probably 10-2, and they'll finish 3rd in the conference. And because they don't play in the conference championship, they're going to finish somewhere around 7 or 8 nationally.
Yeah, I can see Utah, who is my number 2 team, also being 10-2, which is fine because my number 3 team is also 10-2, who's probably your number 2 team. So, look, Utah last year
is going to get them at home. Utah's going to get Oregon at home.
Yep. Utah impressed me like crazy last year, and they have a lot of players back, including their phenom quarterback, Cam Rising, who can take the ball from the 3-yard line and score a touchdown every single time, which doesn't make any sense. And Utah is, I mean, the schedule's good for Utah except for Cal or Southern Cal and Washington. I mean, I don't see a problem with them going on the road against Baylor. Sorry. Like,
but those are the games they lose. I didn't think they'd lose at Florida last year.
Florida going to Utah is going to be a different experience, so that's for sure.
Yeah.
8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern, which is what, 5 p.m. Pacific time. So
that game's on a Thursday. What a way to open the year with that.
Oh, it should be a good one. So that'll be fun. Look, I think Utah wins their first 3 games easily. They could struggle with UCLA, but I think Utah is by far the better team. I think they just crush Oregon State, and they crush Cal. So they are 6-0 going into their matchup again versus Southern Cal. And that's going to be a tough game, and I'm sure that you're going to have Caleb Williams with his fingers painted, some FU Joseph Smith or something like that. So it's just guaranteed to happen with that kid.
Yeah.
But he will probably deliver on it this time, unlike he did both times last year. I highly doubt.
If he doesn't,
highly doubt Utah gets him 3 times.
It's gonna that game. There's so much more pressure on USC to win that game than there is Utah.
Oh yeah, but USC has all the pressure because they're the top of the league.
No, USC is the pressure because they're the brand, and because if Lincoln Riley, imagine this. So they're going out of the Pac-12.
Yeah,
all of the teams in the Pac-12. It's all about pride. It's about branding. It's about history. The story of USC in the Pac-12 will not be told appropriately if in the last decade of them being in the conference, they don't win a conference championship.
That's true.
If they lose again, and we are talking about Lincoln Riley losing the big game again, because Lincoln Riley, the frustration is why are we losing a bowl game to Tulane? The frustration is why are we losing twice in a year to Utah, right? Like these teams might be good, but we're USC. We shouldn't be losing these games. If they don't win the conference again, I do think there will be some questions about Lincoln Riley, and maybe he's just an offensive genius, but it kind of ends there, and that may or may not be warranted. It may or may not be true, but I think those discussions will be there. So I think all the pressure is on USC in that game. My number 2 team is Oregon. So first off, I think Ben's hesitancy, and I think a lot of people's hesitancy, it is warranted, is Oregon started off last year losing 49-3 to Georgia. It was absolutely a massacre. But Ben, if we sit down and think, why was it a massacre? Oregon replaced all of their coaching staff, and Oregon replaced the quarterback. Now, I know you're bringing in a veteran quarterback in Bo Nix, but he's got to get used to that offense. He's got to get used to these new coaches. They're traveling across country. It's essentially a home game for Georgia. Like,
also,
we should have seen that ahead of time.
Georgia played Bo Nix 3 years prior. Yeah. They knew how to beat him.
They did.
And I said before that game, it was going to be a bloodbath.
You did. And I didn't believe you. In fact, I think I thought Oregon might beat Georgia to open up.
You did.
Yeah. Not a great prediction on my part. But here's the thing. So Oregon's returning their top 3 running backs. Oregon is also bringing in Tez Johnson, Troy's top receiver from a year ago, had about 900 yards. He's really, really good. And the defense is much improved there. They're bringing back 8 starters on both sides of the ball. I think this is going to be a much improved team because I've got Bo Nix coming back. Dan Lanning is in his second year as a head coach, so he gets to start to figure it out. I just think Oregon's going to be a different team this year. And then they're going to get the schedule. They're going to play at Washington, winnable game, but that's tough. And at Utah is tough. But the Utah game last year, Ben, 20-17. This is the one team that really kept Cam Rising limited. They really made it tough on them. And I think it's because Dan Lanning's pretty good when it comes to defense. And if you look at Oregon's schedule last year, they lost that Georgia game. Their next 7 games, all of them were blowouts with the exception of Washington State, which they won on the road. But they even beat UCLA by 2 touchdowns, Ben. So after that Georgia game, Oregon really started to come into their own. They didn't have the pressure anymore. That was off. This year, their toughest game first half of the season is going to be at Texas Tech. I think they're going to figure it out more, and they're just going to be an absolutely brutal team to have to go and knock off. So I think Oregon, with this schedule, getting USC at home, I think they're going to be 10-2, maybe 11-1, dark horse team to sneak into the playoff. They're really, really good.
Yeah, I have them 10-2. So splitting hairs, as you said, for the first 4 here. But I'm glad we can both agree on number 1, and that is the University of Southern California, behind Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams and all of the incredible talent that they have been able to amass at Southern Cal in their last season in the Pac-12 before they go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, my number 1 is also SC. I just think it's the best quarterback receiving combo in the conference. Also, this schedule, Ben, they don't really get a tough game that I think they're even capable of losing until October 14th, where they're going to go at Notre Dame. And I still think SC is going to be double-digit favorites in that game. So they're winning, their first 6 games unless they just get bored and don't game plan correctly or have a bad week of practice. They're winning all of those games. Now, the end of the schedule, Ben, is where it gets tough. At Notre Dame, Utah at home, at Cal, which is a sneaky game, and Cal's going to be off a bye. So the game at Cal is sandwiched between Washington and Utah. They get Washington at home, at Oregon, and they're going to end with UCLA. So it is going to be a brutal, and I mean brutal, end to the year for USC with that schedule. But I just think Caleb Williams and these receivers are too much. And Ben, if they tear through it the way I think they're going to, even if they drop a game, Caleb Williams is repeating as player of the year. So my player of the year prediction is Caleb Williams because I don't see SC finishing off worse than 10-2. And I think because of these first 6 games and how easy they are, he's going to put up some early records middle of the year. And by the time we get to the end of the year, he's just going to be head and shoulders better than the rest. So he's my player of the year preseason, and USC is my pick to win the conference. My conference championship is USC versus Oregon.
There you go. Very nice. So I would love to see USC versus Utah. That's my only difference there. Just because, I don't know, man. I guess in this rivalry, I would love to see it one more time.
I will tell you, my best game of the year, my most exciting game, Ben, is going to be SC going to Oregon, because there's a good chance USC is undefeated going into that game.
Yep.
And completely worn out from having played Washington the week before. And Oregon, especially if it's a night game, is going to be an absolute madhouse. And not to mention mid-November, who knows what kind of weather you're getting up there. It might be raining sideways in Oregon. Like you may not get a sunny 80-degree day up there. So I think that's going to be USC's toughest game. I think Oregon could very possibly knock them off. That's my most exciting game of the year. Ben, do you have one you're looking forward to?
Yeah, it's USC and Utah rematch.
Yeah,
that is by far my number one. While we're talking about Caleb Williams, though, because you said you're predicting him to be your player of the year again, I am as well. Let me just read you off some of the stats that he holds for USC. Single season stats, and this is the program that had players like Matt Leinart and everyone else. So remember the dynasty of USC back in the early 2000s. Caleb Williams holds USC's single season record for total offense, 4,919 yards, most touchdowns scored rushing and passing, 52, passing completions, 333, passes attempted, 500, most passing yards gained, 4,537. Most touchdown passes thrown, 42. Most rushing and passing plays, 613. Lowest rate of interceptions at 1%, 5 in 500 attempts. And he has the highest passing efficiency rating.
That stat is fascinating right there. He throws 500 attempts. So basically, it's one out of every 100 attempts he's throwing a pick.
Uh-huh.
So basically, I mean, so if he averages, say, like 30 attempts, that means it's going to take him 3 games to throw 1 pick.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think he's throwing a pick against San Jose State, Nevada, Stanford, Arizona State, Colorado. So it's the first 6 weeks of the year, he's not going to have a pick.
So the last one, highest passing efficiency rating of 168.5. Stupid.
But Ben, I would argue if that's the case, and he just doesn't throw interceptions, which is amazing, but I would argue that could be USC's downfall.
Is what? They have the best quarterback in the nation?
No. If the fact that their schedule is as easy as it is and he doesn't throw picks, if they get through the first 6 games of the year and he actually hasn't thrown an interception, let's just say that comes true, right? When he throws that first pick against Notre Dame or Utah or Washington, whenever it comes, right? When he throws that first pick, he's not going to know how to respond.
Meh. Let's come back out and do what he's done for every other down, for every other game for
it's a lot easier said than done.
6 weeks.
Yeah, no, I think that's a lot easier said than done. I think that is actually fascinating. The one thing USC, we didn't talk about this. USC has to improve on defense. Last year, they were absolutely awful on the defensive side of the ball. If they are not better this year, like I think they allowed like close to 400 yards on defense. If they are not better on the defensive side of the ball this year, they are going to really, really struggle late in the year. So they allowed 424 yards last year, 30 points, allowed 160 rushing yards a game. You just can't do that. And these offensive lines on the Pac-12, Oregon's got a good one, Utah's got a good one, Washington's got a good one. There goes Ben's 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock alarm. Yeah. Like I think USC is going to be great, but I think they've got to fix the defensive side of the ball if they're going to go back to the Pac-12 championship. So Ben, who is your surprise contender? Mine is Oregon State.
Ooh, mine is Colorado.
Contender?
Prime effect, baby.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about Colorado, Where does Shedeur Sanders rank in these quarterback rankings?
Probably where I ranked the team at number 7.
I mean, you've got
but he could elevate his play.
What?
He could elevate his play.
Absolutely. But you got Caleb Williams, Michael Penix,
6.
Bo Nix, Cam Rising.
Yeah, they're the top 4.
DJ Uiagalelei, which I wouldn't put in the top 5.
I wouldn't put him in the top 5. Maybe Colorado is top 5.
Cameron Ward is back at Washington State.
Meh.
Jaden Delora is at Arizona. He might be the 5th best quarterback in the conference. And then what? That would put Shedeur Sanders at 6.
Or at number 5. I'm putting him at number 5.
Somewhere around there. But I mean, that's the thing about Colorado, is if that is your savings grace, is Shedeur Sanders is this really amazing quarterback. Well, everybody in the conference is a really amazing quarterback. Like, I don't think that gives them any.
It's not my saving grace. Advantage. It's the fact that they have the most excitement of any team in the Pac-12.
So that's your most exciting team to watch them to.
Yeah, and surprise contender because of it. Look, they are a completely different team. We don't know what they're actually going to look like. Remember last year? Remember last year when I said USC would be the best team, and you were like, "Oh, but we have no idea. This is a complete whatever garbage thing." Lincoln Riley came in and just put together a bunch of pieces and was like, "Oh, we're going to figure it out." That is this year's USC is Colorado. Yeah, and so and look, they're not the same caliber. They're not the same caliber at what USC had, but I think it could be really electric. I think it could be a surprise contender.
I do think it will be fun. My most exciting team is Utah because they've always been great in the trenches. This is the one year where, and they're bringing in Landon King, by the way, at receiver. So, I mean, you know how good Landon King is.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
I hate that we lost him.
Yeah. So he comes in at receiver. It's the one year Utah is actually really dynamic on both sides of the ball. They've not been like that. They've been great in the trenches. They've got a great quarterback. They've got great receivers. The further away you get from the ball, Utah is as good as anybody else. So I think they're going to be amazing to watch. And Ben, I do think you're right. That game at USC is going to be absolutely insane. Right, last superlative here that we always do when we do our conference previews. And Ben, I've got an answer for it. I don't have a good answer for it at all. I don't think he's actually going to be on the hot seat, but my hottest seat superlative is going to go to Justin Wilcox, the coach over at Cal, only because he's coming off of 3 straight losing seasons. I don't think Cal would get rid of him unless he won only like 3 or 4 games, and I don't see that happening with this team. But he's the only coach I could think of that might be on the hot seat. I mean, you've got Jed Fish in his 3rd year at Arizona. He's not getting fired. Kenny Dillingham in his 1st year at Arizona State. Deion's not getting fired. He's in his 1st year. Troy Taylor's in his 1st year at Stanford. You've got Jake Dickery at Washington State. He's had back-to-back winning seasons. He's not getting fired. Chip Kelly's not getting fired. Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, there's no way he's getting fired. Kalen DeBoer's at his 2nd year. He's not getting fired. Dan Lanning, maybe if Oregon just like went 7-5 or 6-6, maybe there'd be a talk about it, but I don't see that happening. Kyle Whittingham's not getting fired, and Lincoln Riley's not getting fired. The only one I could think of that maybe would get let go if the team had a losing record would be Justin Wilcox.
Yeah, right now, of all the teams as well, one of the least exciting, which you think is going to be middle of the pack, but I don't, with Cal. I think they underperform, thus meaning coaches on the hot seat.
I do think it's interesting. If like none of these coaches are on the hot seat, like we always talk about in the SEC, a lot of coaches are on the hot seat, right? Every year there's at least 3 or 4 potential SEC openings. And what it creates is I think it creates really interesting games where if Arkansas can upset Auburn, save his job, if Auburn can knock off Texas A&M. Hugh Freeze keeps his job, which obviously he's not getting fired this year. But that you're going to have in the SEC every year. And this is just 1 year in the Pac-12, Ben. I don't think anybody's really concerned about their job, which means I think they can coach a little bit looser and freer. I think this is a really interesting year for the Pac-12. And it's a shame the conference is going to what it's going to.
The last year of the Pac-12. So
it's just, yeah, because I think this is going to be really fun. Like, it's the first year I'm like really looking forward to Pac-12 After Dark.
Yeah. Good. Get as much as you can because it's gone after this year.
No kidding. It is. All right. Any closing thoughts here on our Pac-12 preview, Mr. Benjamin?
Look, I am glad we left the last for last because they do not matter in the grand scheme of things, which is why they're being picked apart to the bone. But this is going to be probably the best year that the Pac-12 has had in the past 20 years. So just think about that. The last year of the Pac-12 will be the best year it's had in the past 2 decades. Pretty awesome. So
that is fascinating.
I mean, it's going to be, they're going out with a bang. Let's say that. And I love it.
So next Sunday, we are off. There will be no podcast next Sunday.
You're going to miss us.
Yes, you will miss us.
Your mom will miss us
Ben,
here.
Middle of the week next week. You think we can squeeze one in before week 0 gets here?
Maybe.
Is it possible? And maybe do a group of 5 preview.
Okay. You want to do middle of the week next week?
Yeah. Next week. Not this coming up week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
before the 24th.
I'm trying to figure it out. We're going to do a preseason preview too? When is that? That's coming up, right?
Well, we did our preseason preview.
Well, no, I mean like a week 0 preview.
A week 0 preview.
Yeah.
Do we want to do week previews or week recaps? Do we want to let people vote on it?
Yeah, put up a poll.
We should
put up a poll on X.
On X. I kind of like doing weekly recaps and doing it on Sunday at 8 because the football game doesn't start until I think 8:30.
Yeah.
I think we would just say live every Sunday at 8. Yes, we let our podcast roll while we figure out administrative stuff.
No, I like it.
I do.
Yeah. And we should give it up to the listeners to see if they want us to preview it all.
Okay.
But then recaps Sunday at 8.
You realize when I put up a poll, there will be 2 people that vote. It'll be me and you. And we'll probably vote against each other. So we're going to have this discussion again, regardless of the poll.
Let's just throw it up there. See what happens. It's the public town square or whatever, right?
To the 2 people that are watching us, including my mom, you have to vote in our poll, which will be on X. Let us know. Preview or review. What do you prefer? I like if we do a preview, we basically have to do it like Thursday nights.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Which is fine.
No, that's too much work. Let's just do reviews.
See, I knew a poll was going to be pointless.
There we go. I'm voting with you on the poll.
Okay. Any other business stuff we need to figure out, Ben?
No, man, I think we're good.
Cool. All right. This has
You're welcome, listeners.
Been another episode of the Fourth String Podcast. You find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. Find us on iTunes. But hold on. Before we go, I got a call last week on Monday. My friend Chad. So I say this for 110 in case Chad Bowman decides to listen out, because Chad Bowman, and I'm a friend of Chad. I like Chad. He did not like my ACC predictions, and he made some pretty interesting points. So I had Virginia Tech ranked 11th in the conference, and I had them ranked beneath Boston College. So I will agree with Chad. I gave Boston College way too much love last week. So I have decided to alter my ACC rankings based off of my conversation with Chad. So my new ACC rankings, I have moved Virginia Tech from 11th to 10th. There you go.
Oh, gosh.
I think, and by the way, it was funny. We had this conversation. And again, Chad's a great guy. He actually, like, the guy knows ball, absolutely knows ball. But I think we're both kind of in agreement. Tech is somewhere around, and again, I think all the Virginia Tech fans agree with me on this. I think Tech is somewhere around bowl eligible, somewhere around 6-6. But it is going to be interesting, Ben, because week 1 they play Old Dominion, and I would say normally who cares, but Old Dominion's now beaten them 2 times straight. So they got to beat ODU. You cannot lose that game. And I don't even think it can be a close game. I think you got to win by 2 possessions. That's what Chad was saying too. You got to win by 2 possessions to really make a point and prove that you're on pace to be what you want to be. If that is a 3-point game, you ain't going to feel good if you're a Tech fan. So
yeah, it's going to be a 3-point loss. Sorry, bro.
ODU. All right. Have a good night. This is the Fourth String Podcast. We'll be back sometime later.